Good morning, good afternoon, good night. It depends on where you are. How are you doing? What a gone, as we say in Jamaica. Welcome back. My name is Sophia Elizabeth Lambert. I am a published author of now three books. The titles are Hope Deferred, Rise Up, Mentoring Boys to Become Men of Integrity, and A Guide to Mentoring Boys to Effectively Mentor Boys to Become Men of Integrity. Today, I have a guest with me, but before I introduce him, I just want to share this little bit. Once upon a time, there were dirty magazines, but with the advent of the internet, pornography is easily accessible and more prevalent. Finding porn is a click away. As a result, there are more boys and men who are becoming entrapped by pornography. Many children have a smartphone, which provides the opportunity for exposure to porn. Research shows that the median age of first exposure to pornography is now only 14 years old. I think it may have changed recently due to the advent of COVID. I think it has reduced to maybe 13. 93.2% of boys and 62.1% of girls first see porn before they turn 18. Early exposure to porn is correlated with increased porn use and addiction later in life. The increase and addiction to porn has created a billion-dollar industry. Teens and young adults 13 to 24 believe not recycling is worse than viewing pornography. They are oblivious to the trap that has been set for them. It is for this reason that I have a special guest today to discuss the topic of pornography, the trap for boys and men. My guest today is Sean Bonatoff. He is
Hey,
a
Sophie.
certified coach and mentor who helps men struggling with unwanted sexual behaviors. With his own 14-year pornography addiction, struggles with erectile dysfunction, and ultimately sexual brokenness. He has been called to use his redemption story as a beacon of hope to those in similar places. Sean has had the opportunity to speak in various settings to men and women around the world. He has been a guest speaker and writer for Triple X Church, Bravehearts, Husband Material, Family Life Canada, The Real Men Connect, and many more. He and his wife were invited to Lebanon in 2019 to speak and educate leaders and students on understanding the harms and solutions to pornography addiction. With a holistic, gospel centered approach, Sean has helped men from all walks of life experience and live in sexual integrity. He is a strong advocate that true lasting freedom exists and in Christ Jesus we can all experience sexual wholeness. Sean runs Secret Habit with his wife, Helena. Together, they are on a mission to help men and women experience God's beautiful design for sexuality. Welcome, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Good to be here.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about just what Secret Habit is all about?
I sure can. Yes, Secret Habit was the calling from God when I had quit pornography
Mm-hmm.
to begin sharing the story of hope that people can quit and quit in a way that is not just behavior modification, behavior management. It's a way of understanding where we came from, looking at our story of brokenness, how we got to finding pornography, how it overcame us, and ultimately seeing how there is freedom available in Jesus. So, Secret Habit is all about restoring men and women. We believe that when men and women are restored, there's greater marriages, greater families, and that leaves a legacy. And we're very passionate about people being transformed and leaving legacies so that the kingdom expands by generation. And we see that we have a daughter now. So now we're even more passionate about that than ever before.
Oh, great. Congratulations. Happy
Thank
belated
you.
Father's Day.
Thank you so much. Yeah, our daughter Violet turned 16 months today. And it's
Oh,
just been amazing to watch her develop. We just recorded a podcast the other night about being a healthy sexual father, in a way of being able to be intimate with a daughter, because with addiction to pornography, it's just not the same. So again, Secret Habit has a passion in all of these areas. We talk about sexual integrity because we believe that that is abundance. That is really what I think Christ intended when he came to give us life and give us life to the fullest. And when God designed sex and sexuality, he made it for good. And we're really trying to reclaim what God made beautiful.
as you mentioned your daughter and the importance of having sexual integrity, I remember a young lady I counseled many years ago, and she became exposed to explicit materials from the age of 9, because it was her father's stash that she came across.
Yeah.
And that thing created a spiral effect in her life. At the time I met her, she was maybe 13, and the effect it had is
Yeah.
amazing. So it is really important to just live a life that is sacred in that area, to protect your children. Now,
Absolutely.
I have a question for you. Can you speak about the pull to pornography, the lies, and how it can entrap somebody? Because
Yeah.
um, a psychologist I know, when he was preparing for his PhD, he had to do a course on pornography, and he spoke about the lies that they discovered, because they thought, all that pornography promises that it
Yeah.
contradicts it. So, can you speak to that for us, please?
Absolutely, yeah. So the hook in of itself is often seen as starting with when someone sees pornography. I would say one of the biggest hooks for a lot of young people is that there's an emotional void in their life. A lot of people that get hooked on pornography end up using it as a way to numb a void in their life, and that's why it's so easily entrapping, is because for me growing up, like until I saw pornography, my family unit was pretty tight, pretty intimate with my mom and dad. But there was a season where when I saw pornography, my mom fell away from the church. She started drinking alcohol and smoking at our neighbor's house. My dad stopped hugging me and noticing me as I had felt him before. And there was this void in my life of being pursued, of being wanted, of being seen, of being loved the way that I needed to be loved as a young boy. And when I saw pornography, it was really captivating because I was in this emotional state of looking for something to fill that void. And maybe it doesn't fill it. We know it doesn't, but it sure doesn't numb it. And when you're that young, not only is there that side, but then there's also the side of our brains go into crazy states because of the dopamine effect of pornography. So not only are we looking at the emotional side, but now we're looking at the psychological side, where when you get a rush of dopamine that great, that is not natural, it's impossible to replicate that naturally. The brain of any age is not meant to handle that rush of dopamine. So when a young child, I saw it at 10, I got addicted by 13. When a young boy, young girl sees porn, they're getting this incredible unnatural rush of dopamine that the brain cannot comprehend, but it wants more of it because it feels better than anything they've ever had. And that's the hook. And that's what dopamine does. And there's also other chemicals like oxytocin that bond you to the screen. And dopamine is an addiction in and of itself, as we see with smartphones nowadays and video games and Netflix. People want that quick hit. And when a young child realizes porn is just a click away, it numbs the pain, it makes them feel powerful or pleasured. It's really, really addictive. And it's not so much that they know what they're doing because of porn, it's all of these other things. There's the emotional filling, the numbing, and the psychological side of just the brain neurobiology of the dopamine rush that then we want more and more and more. And that's with food, that's with other things, but with porn especially, because God made us to be sexual beings. When our bodies feel that pleasure, we want more of it, especially if we've grown up in homes where it's not talked about. to talk about our bodies and what's going on inside of us. How are we feeling? Because then it often becomes a secret habit, as that's our organization. Because, you know, my stories, I saw my dad watching porn at night when no one was around, and I learned from that without him telling me that it must have to be done in secret. And we begin to get these lies that as you're talking, Sophia, these lies that it's secretive, I can't tell anybody, everybody does it, I'm all alone. There's all these lies we hear that they often contradict each other. Everyone does it, I'm the only one that struggles. What an amazing contradiction. So we often hear these lies continually. If I told anybody, they would judge me. If I told my parents, they would discipline me. And a lot of young people just get trapped in this place. And sometimes there are those courageous kids and children that do tell their parents, but parents are not equipped to help them, and it ends up actually causing more problems in many cases. So it's a really tough spot for young people to have someone to talk to know what to do when they get into this trap of pornography.
You know, there's a question I have been pondering for years. Even as you spoke about, many people have been doing it. I wonder, considering that many people are involved and they know the impact of it, why is it that some people expose children? Some years ago, I passed a man. He was selling pornography on DVDs to little boys. Usually, I take on the fight, but I felt a bit intimidated to approach that man. So,
Hmm.
why is it that I'm sure he would be aware of the impact it has on his life? Why put such a burden onto the younger generation? I mean, you may not know his reason, but generally speaking, though, why?
Well, yeah, it's a pretty deep question. Unfortunately, when we see people get into pornography, the reality is after a while the dopamine rush doesn't happen the same way, and that's why there's different genres of pornography. That's why a lot of men start watching homosexual pornography. That's why people go from pornography to prostitution, and then even child abuse, child pornography, rape, because there's this escalation that what you see in porn, you then want to do it. And then when you do it, it doesn't satisfy. And then you need to find the next radical thing to do. So that would be the progression of how we get to those places. It's actually just in our neurobiology of how we basically our brain atrophies and becomes very corrupt. The second thing is just that hurting people unfortunately hurt other people. If this guy's been hurt, he's just going out and doing all he knows. That's really the sad reality. And then the third thing is he could very well be grooming these young boys so that to see if they enjoy what they're watching, so that he could probably sexually abuse them. And that's the sad
Oh,
reality of what's going on in the world today is people use stuff like this to groom their children, to groom friends, to groom coworkers.
wow.
They'll kind of put something out there to see if they catch it, and they'll use that as a way to develop an intimate relationship that then they hope to turn sexual and abusive. And it happens a lot. It's really a tragedy.
Mm. Oh, no, I wish I had stopped. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing is, what are some of the effects of the addiction? Because children who are unaware of the effects, the impact, long-lasting
Yeah.
impact it has.
Yeah.
How are they trapped? What are some of the traps that are there for that they can avoid?
Yeah, so even just going from my own story, as I was growing up, some of the things that were consequences of pornography addiction was isolation. I would say no to doing regular things that a boy would do so I could run home and watch pornography. So isolation, broken friendships, getting in toxic relationships, not being able to look people in the eye because I felt so ashamed of myself, being afraid to talk to women because everything became sexual and I didn't even see them as humans anymore, feeling a distance from my parents because I felt like I had to keep secrets from them, always just looking in the mirror and hating myself. These were just basic consequences from a teenager going through pornography. That led to consequences of me actually abusing women, getting into relationships that were very toxic. spending all of my time thinking and looking for ways to have sex. So I literally had no life. Everything I did became about finding the next hit, if you could call it that. It's very much like a drug addict mindset where you're just kind of shaky until you get another hit. So those would be some basic consequences. But then even further, we're looking at like porn-induced erectile dysfunction. I had erectile dysfunction at 19 years old. A healthy 19-year-old boy, I could not get an erection with a woman. That was very scary. I couldn't focus at my job. I got angry very quickly. I was a very short-fused person. I broke off relationships with family just based off of my own shame. So those would be some consequences. Then even further, we're looking at like I got married. I brought porn into my marriage, and it absolutely ruptured trust. My wife was devastated. It hurt her. It betrayed her. It took me many years to rebuild trust with her. Our marriage went from exciting and married to devastating in 2 months. And to be married with somebody and go through the turmoil of losing trust and feeling like a hypocrite, feeling like a failure is devastating. And I wouldn't want that for anybody. So those are consequences that a young person could never imagine, but those are tremendous. And then even further consequences of there's legal, I never got into this, but legal consequences. I have clients that will lose their jobs because they're masturbating at work. I'll have clients that have been charged legally for sexual abuse or voyeurism or other things. So the consequences are vast. And as a young person, they just can't see that bigger picture. And that's why I think one of my callings is to share my story and offer hope so that people don't just hear someone saying, hey, porn's bad, don't do it, don't do that because it's bad. And God says this and the Bible says that. That's just not helpful. A young person really needs to see the roadmap of where things could go. And that's something that I've always done since quitting porn back in 2017 is share very honestly with people the consequences that I had to suffer that I don't want other people to have to suffer.
Okay, that's good. You mentioned masturbation and erectile dysfunction. Is that can masturbation lead to that? What led to it? I'm asking this question because some years ago I had a discussion with some men, young boys. They were like 18, 19, and we were talking about masturbation, and they were telling me about um, that whole journey. In my, I guess, at the time, inexperience, or maybe just unprepared for that discussion because it just came up. I told them that masturbation can lead to erectile dysfunction as well as it can lead to low sperm count. Is there any truth in that?
Yeah, so with masturbation, basically what you're doing is you're programming your penis to enjoy your own way of pleasuring yourself. So that's one of the challenges with masturbation. There's different perspectives on is it sin, is it not, is it healthy, is it not? So it's hard for me to say this for sure, but we can definitely see that men that masturbate can very well fall into something called desensitization, which is where you've used your own hand for so long that a vagina isn't as satisfying because you've pleasured yourself in the same way for so long, which can then lead to erectile dysfunction, can lead to sexual shame, lack of sexual pleasure, and that is devastating. And then the other side is sometimes men will experience sensitization because they've masturbated a certain way before for so long that sometimes the guys will actually experience like the moment they penetrate a vagina, they'll ejaculate because they've just for so long they've had a rush of pleasure when they masturbate themselves. A lot of times guys will masturbate kind of in a secret place where there's an opportunity where someone could find them out. So they're actually rushing when they masturbate. So they have this programming in their head that when I masturbate, I have to ejaculate quickly. And that can really affect a sexual relationship. Because like a woman, I think the average woman orgasms after 18 minutes. And if a guy's ejaculating in 30 seconds, there's not a lot of pleasure for the female, for my wife in my own story. And that's the problem with masturbation is we look at things that are going on in the brain level sensitization and desensitization both cause a lot of problems. And my wife actually had desensitization, where for 2 years in our marriage, she couldn't orgasm because she just couldn't feel what she wanted to feel because she had masturbated herself for so long. So it's a female problem as well.
Mhm. Oh, that's very interesting. Can you give us, our audience, a bit of your story to get a better understanding
Yeah.
of what it looks like?
Yeah, sure. So saw pornography at 10, as I had said already. That led to me getting, I always tell people I got addicted around 13, where I was like daily watching porn, running home from school to hide files I was downloading. I was starting to make choices that were more porn focused than friendship focused or life focused. I became very isolated and secretive. So pornography and masturbation were a daily problem for me. Probably like 3 times a day was pretty normal for me to watch porn and masturbate. And that led into my, teen years, young adult years, where I had a pornified mind. Everything I did was about sex. Everything I did was to lead to sex. Everything I did was for a fleshy pleasure. And that led to me getting into some really toxic relationships. That led to me like really getting into online dating and like websites that were really focused on hooking up. Got into partying, and the whole point of that is to drink enough so the girl is loose and you can have sex with her. And that just became my life. That was before I knew the Lord. That was before anyone ever told me like you can get free from porn, or that there's hope, or that it's even a problem. So I was just going off of my own understanding. Everyone else I knew seemed to be kind of doing the same stuff. So I just felt like a lost soul, for lack of better words. I mentioned at 19, I had erectile dysfunction for the first time. That was a real wake up call that, wow, a healthy 19-year-old boy cannot get an erection. I had an attractive girlfriend, and the madness of erectile dysfunction is that I felt like a failure and she felt ugly. And that's the scary thing, is it affects both parties so much. So moving forward, to give just a snapshot of my story, I had like a rock bottom moment when I met Helena, my wife. When we were dating, I really realized that I wanted to marry her. And I was terrified that I didn't know how to quit porn. I told her that I was going to recovery for pornography, but I didn't tell her how badly I was struggling. And I was really terrified. So while we were dating and engaged, I would be watching porn and lying to her all the time. I was watching porn 2 days before our wedding. So it was such a tremendous problem for me. I had no idea how to stop. We got married. I believe that myth that most guys believe, that once you get married and have sex, then you'll be fine. Pornography will stop. And it actually just made things worse, because I felt more pressure that I now had to really perform, or like I really had to quit, or else I'm screwed. So 2 months into marriage, I relapsed for the first time, where God had provided this beautiful wife for me to be with, to enjoy sex with. And I decided one night to go to the bathroom and watch porn and masturbate. And it was absolutely devastating. And that was like the opening of the gates of hell for me. I just felt like I'd never felt before. I told Helena the next morning, and that is where our marriage really hit a place of sadness. I felt the weight of what I was doing, but I didn't have any idea how to stop. So I continued in marriage to watch porn and masturbate and lie to Helena for 6 more months, just feeling trapped, not knowing what to do, not wanting to tell her like, oh, I'm going to quit, and then not do it. And she was really suffering in silence. So we had obviously things were good at times, but like there was this chaos in our marriage that was causing tremendous strife. And there was this one moment where Helena called me out. And this is part of our podcast we just recorded the other day. She said, Sean, I want you to imagine what life is going to be like in 5 years if you don't quit pornography. You talk about wanting a family and kids. Like, think about what it would look like if you don't quit porn, and think about what it would look like if you do. And that was really an eye-opening experience for me, after everything I've been through with my addiction, with erectile dysfunction, with sexual shame. I had never really thought of that before. And she just gave me this picture of, wow, I don't want to do this anymore. But still, I didn't know how to quit. So I'd love to say that that was it. I quit porn. I even got baptized, and I thought that would be it. I would quit porn. I finally got baptized. I'm giving myself to the Lord. And again, those things are just declarations. If they're not backed up with action from somebody who knows what they're doing, you're not going to change. So it wasn't actually until August, which was 10 months into our marriage, that I had quit pornography. That was on my 25th birthday. And looking back, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And that is part of my story. Is I looked in the mirror on my 25th birthday after having a great day at the beach, and I hated myself. I remember just saying to God, I can't live another year of my life like this. I can't imagine living another day like this. I hate myself. I'm lying to my wife. I'm dishonoring you, Lord, every single day, and I'm sick of it. And that was really a moment where I believe that I surrendered to the Lord for the first time fully. And I really felt like that was a Holy Spirit moment for me, that baptism of fire. Like, wow, I feel different. And that was the beginning of Sean's journey of quitting porn, finding sobriety, and entering into deeper freedom. And it's been almost 5 years now, and it's just been a road of recovery, which is this crazy roller coaster. There's no straight line. Every day is different. In the beginning, you find some stability, you find some things that work for you and how you regulate emotions, getting in community, getting connected, finding a real connection with the Lord. But the reality is I have a story of past pain and past suffering, and a lot of it is a lot of grieving and regulating how I feel about those things today. That's actually part of my foundation to healing that keeps me healthy today. I don't feel like I'm a quote unquote dry drunk, which is the best. A lot of people have that dry drunk mentality where if they saw porn tomorrow, they would go right back to being addicted. And that is not what freedom is. So I just love to talk about freedom, which is the freedom to choose what God would want, the freedom to choose what is healthy and right and living in integrity. And a big part of that is just from my story of trying everything and failing. And finally, one of the best things I ever did was surrender my life to the Lord, get connected with some really good coaches and mentors who knew what they were doing in this area. And I look at my life today, and it's mind-blowing how God has provided so much for a story of so much pain and so much addiction. To have all of that wiped away is only Jesus can do that. So that would be a snapshot of my story. I'm almost 30, so it's pretty cool to think at 25 years old, I was able to look ahead at the rest of my life and make changes that are now impacting my daughter.
That's good. So there is hope. There's always hope.
Always hope, because we have a brain that is malleable and we can renew our minds, but even more, we have a God who is forgiving and redeeming.
What would you say to a young man who is currently trapped in that situation?
Yeah.
He may be a Christian, he loves the Lord, but somehow he just can't seem to get free,
Yeah.
regardless of what he does or how he tries, or, you know, how can he get free?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the first places we need to start is actually finding out why people are going to pornography, because pornography offers them something. It feels good, it offers them a numbing for their voids. So one of the first places of starting out is actually understanding, like, what does porn do for somebody, because that gives us insight into their pain, into their longings, into the areas that God wants to heal. But if pornography is their only and best option for numbing that pain or finding healing for that pain in their head, that's what they think they're doing, they're going to continue to go back to pornography. That's why prayer and reading scripture are not the solutions to quitting porn. They're obviously part of the equation. But when a pastor tells somebody to just read their Bible more and pray, it's not getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is there's a hole in their heart. There's something painful that's happened, and they're using porn as a way to numb that pain. And we really have to find out what that is. And most brains are formed, I think it's between 13 and 15. So whatever happens between 0 and 13 to 15 is tremendous for a young person.
I'm not sure what happened.
That's okay. Should I re-say that and you can cut it, or how do you want to do that?
Can you, yes, continue, please? Repeat
Yeah.
what you had said.
Yeah. So when we get told to just read the Bible more and pray, we're not getting to the root of the problem. And what that does for people is that makes them think that they have to work harder to be able to quit porn. When it's not about working harder, it's about working smart and being curious. So that's why the first step is actually finding out what's the hole in a young person's heart that they're using porn to numb, so that when we can name what's that hole, was that neglect from your dad, was that abuse from your dad, was that sexual abuse from a predator, was that being bullied, was that missing out on the sports team that you tried so hard to be a part of, what was it that hurt you? Because then we can figure out why you're using porn, because porn isn't a substance that people just run to because they're horny. Porn's a substance people run to because they're in pain, and pornographers understand that. They create porn with themes and stories that play into our trauma. That's why porn isn't just a bunch of naked people running in circles, because it's not about the nudity. It's about the stories being played out. That's why there's older women porn. That's why there's certain countries porn. That's why there's all these different genres, because certain people have arousal templates built around that. So we need to actually learn what's going on inside of somebody's mind and their soul to find out what's drawing them to pornography. And often it's trauma, it's pain, it's neglect, it's these areas that need attention, especially for a
Right.
young person who might live in a household where that is not getting attention. They're going to continue to watch porn. So for me at 10 years old, I saw porn. I was longing to be seen and loved and pursued. That was why I kept going to porn, because I could watch videos where older women were seeing and wanting and pursuing younger men, and it made me feel powerful. It made me feel wanted. So that's the biggest thing, is actually finding out what's the problem at the root and figuring out healthy ways to get that longing met, because there are so many healthy ways to get that longing met. But when you're trapped in pornography, it seems like the only choice.
Wow, this is very interesting. It's very eye opening for me.
Yeah.
Thank you. We unfortunately, I have to break at this point. Um, I want to tell you thanks again for joining us, and one to my guests or audiences. I want to tell you, stick around for the part two.
Hmm.
It is going to be worth it. Thank you for watching, and remember, let us change future history today by mentoring a boy to become men of integrity. Have a great day. See you in the next video.